Good afternoon, how you doing? Happy birthday to you, even if it's not your real birthday, because every day is the first day of the rest of your life. So why not go and celebrate today as your birthday? Happy birthday to you. Hi, how you doing? Today we are going to talk about my journey out of depression, but also I'm going to start it off with a question that somebody asked me last week, which was, how fast can depression end? I'm not sure that she worded it exactly like that, but it was along those sorts of lines. Basically just saying, I'm struggling with depression right now. How fast can I get out of it? Yeah, that's sort of where we were going with that the answer to that question. And it's a good question. And I think the real answer is, unfortunately, it depends. Because it does depend a little bit on like why you're depressed in the first place. It depends a little bit on why whether or not you're already on like antidepressants, for example. It'll depend a little bit on how much work you put in to try and overcome the depression, because if you don't do the work, you can't recover. It'll depend a little bit on how long you've been in struggling with depression, as it were. So me personally, I didn't even realize I was getting, and most people would be the same, by the way, in this situation. Most people don't realize they're getting depressed. It can sometimes be like a one-off kind of a known factor, reason why it's happened. Like you've lost all your money, you know, your partner's left you, I don't know, your mum's died, something like that. And all those things can happen at the same time, which can then suddenly just sink you into a depression. And there's a really good description of this by a guy, I can't remember the guy's name. I think he wrote a book, something like 10 Reasons to Stay Alive or something, or just Reasons to Stay Alive or something like that. I can't remember his actual name. In fact, I will Google him. Reasons to Stay I think it was him that said it anyway. To Stay Alive. There you go. Matt Haig. There you go. So he wrote a book called Reasons to Stay Alive, by Matt Haig. In fact, I will Reasons to Stay Alive. There you go. Reasons to Stay Alive on Amazon. Boom. There you go. I will get the link so that I can link it to you. I can't remember if it was him that did this, but somebody did some research, and you know, he's in this sort of area, so I think it probably was him. Get a link and stick it into there. Oops, no. Get a link. Why is it not getting me the link? Anyway, so he did some research onto this, and one of his sort of analogies, I'm not sure if it was him, like I said, was that it's like a bath. You're in a bath, you're full of water, and obviously you can take the plug out and the water can go down. But the bath is filling up with water, slowly filling up with water. And there's only so much capacity that the bath has before the water starts pouring out the edges. And you can start putting up like barriers and stuff. You could get some planks and things and create the bath so that it can take more capacity water. But eventually that water's still going to pour out the top. And what you really need to do is learn some techniques for keeping the water level down, like learning how to turn off the tap, for starters. That's like turning off the amount of negative stuff that's coming into your life. And we talk about this on the Cube, for example, when we talk about shielding yourself against negative stories and negative news and all that kind of stuff. And who are you hanging around with? What friends have you got around you? Have you got friends that are draining your energy and so forth? So that's turning the tap off. And then also pulling the plug out as well. So that is finding a way of releasing all the energy, releasing all that negative pent up stuff. So that would be meditation and mindfulness and doing fun things and doing things like sorting out your daily routines and your habits so that your habits are not making things worse. And like, for example, if you're, habits not making things worse. So for example, if you're overeating and you're getting fat, you could then feel depressed because you're fat. And if you're unfit because you're not going out and exercising, you can feel terrible because you can't move, so therefore you start feeling bad because you can't go out, and then you feel embarrassed about going out, and so then you don't go out, and then you get bad because you're not interacting with people. So it then becomes this negative downward cycle we're coming on that we come to. So that's the whole concept. There is the bath that's full of water, and you just need to learn how to let the water out and turn off the taps. Now obviously you can let the water out a little bit and then put it back in again, and then you can turn the taps on and turn the taps off, and that. So you can, with the 15 pillars, you can turn them on and off, and you can do a little bit more of one, a little bit less of another, and all that kind of stuff. So for example, if you turn the taps off a little bit, and open the plug a little bit, you might find that you can balance your equilibrium. You can find a happy place that you're happy with. And remember, a couple of weeks ago we talked about how you have these ups and downs in life. You have a good day, you have a bad day, you have a good day and a bad day, and that's like your life going beep beep beep, like your heart beats beep beep. And you don't want that flat line beep. That's bad. You want those ups and downs in your life because that's where the fun lies. What you want to do though is you want to make sure that when you have a down day, a bad day, it's not so bad that it destroys your life. So what these 15 pillars will do is they will slowly raise your average level of happiness, something I learned from Tony Robbins. And by the way, if you're not in Thrive this week, come along to Thrive. It's free this week. You'll find a link somewhere from Tony Robbins. Thrive, I don't know. If you want the link, drop me a message. Say Thrive in the comments, and I will send you the link to Thrive. It's free. There are ways I could get commissions and stuff, but I just don't think I'm going to bother with that. Anyway, because they're going to try and sell your stuff. There's no doubt about it. Anyway, so you're raising your average level of happiness, and it's about like how many of these things do you do, and how often and how regularly do you do them. And so that's how you dig yourself out of depression. I used an analogy for this in the first book that I wrote that I never published, which I'm now thinking about maybe I was going to say reimagining. That's not the right word. Revising, bringing back to life, whatever the word is for that, and republishing it and publishing it rather. Even if I don't finish it properly, just whatever I've done already, and just tidy it all up and make it into a book and stick it on Amazon and just say, there you go. That's the first book I wrote, which is never published, which basically goes into my 15 pillars, talks about my depression story. So the story I'm about to tell you now, and also has at the bottom of it the first versions of my Create Happy Thoughts thing, because at the bottom of every single page back then we had what's made you smile today and what have you achieved today, I think, or I can't remember what that was actually in the book, but something along those lines anyway. So again, I might just expand that slightly so it's got all the 4 things in there. But it wouldn't be all 4, because it would make sense to say, what are you grateful for, what have you achieved, and what's made you smile, those 3, rather than the what are you going to do tomorrow. So that's sort of future pacing part that come into this book, that wouldn't make sense in the context of when I wrote the original book in 2014, which never published, obviously, because it didn't have a publisher at the time, and Amazon self-publishing wasn't really a thing back then either. Anyway, can't remember what I was saying. Anyway, so yes, so that's how you dig. Oh, the analogy that's in that book about the art of uphill skiing. So that book is called The Art of Uphill Skiing. So it was all about kind of inspired by the book The Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, I think it is called, which is again about sort of mindfulness and meditation, mindset stuff. And I quite like the idea of that. And my story was about slippery slopes and stuff, so I made it The Art of Uphill Skiing. And I even had found a cartoon which was about a guy going uphill and the other guy saying, "There's something wrong with this picture." It was kind of cool. Anyway, and of course I could probably get AI to do that for me now. It's kind of cool, because again, that didn't exist back then when I wrote the thing. So I was trying to find this picture, and I couldn't find this picture that would show uphill skiing, but in my way. And also, I wanted to have illustrations in that book as well, of a variety of things. And of course, I can do that now, and I didn't. It's so funny, because I was looking for an illustrator, who can I find that would be able to draw it? Anyway, there you go. So coming soon, that book, The Art of Uphill Skiing. Anyway, so the story is about skiing. So it's you're here, you've had fresh snow, and you're going out tobogganing with your friends and your mates, and you're running up to the top of the slopes, and then you're jumping on the toboggan, you're sliding down, and you do this for a little while, and eventually the snow all packs down and it becomes slippery slope, and it becomes then hard to walk up to the top of the slope because it's all slippery and slidey. Kind of just have to go with me on the analogy a little bit here. But yeah, suddenly it's hard to climb up to the top of the slope. Meanwhile, your friends have all gone off and found a different slope to go on, and you stayed on this one slope for a little while, but everybody else has gone away. It's just you on your own now. And you're trying to climb up this slope, and it's just slipping, and you can't get up to the top of the slope, so you get kind of oh, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I can't be bothered to make any more effort. And so you just kind of sit down and go, I've had enough. And of course, that's the real danger zone at that point, because that's when you kind of give up on life, and you're going to start getting cold. Your body's temperature is going to start to drop, and eventually you're going to lose the will to be able to give it a go of climbing to the top of the mountain. But what happens then is your doctor comes to the top of the mountain and sees you struggling down there and throws you a rope and pulls you up to the top of the slope and holds on to you and keeps you safe. And that's antidepressants a lot of the time. So that is, you get into the top of the slope with your rope, but then you want to tie the rope on because you don't want to slip down the slope again. So you tie the rope to a nearby tree, but then you can't have fun. You see, you can't go down the slopes. You can't enjoy life. You can't have these ups and downs of your life at that point. You've got to let go of the rope at some point. So that's giving up the antidepressants. So now I'm not saying just stop the antidepressants in any way, shape or form. Do it with the support of your doctor at all times. However, what you can do is you can let the rope out and you can start learning, even if it's just without moving off that same slope, you can start learning how to use crampons and how to use a button lift and how to use chair lift and how to use cross-country skis. So you can start learning all these techniques. The 15 pillars of this. So you can literally read about all these things. And there's quite a lot of these things in this particular example, in the real scenario, that you can do without leaving the house, without getting up, without doing anything that's scary to you if you're struggling with depression. And you can learn all these things and you can practice these techniques. Doing the journaling, you can do it in bed. You never even have to get out of bed to do the journaling, for crying out loud. Although one of the things in there is, what are you going to do tomorrow that is unusual? So you have to get up tomorrow and do something in the house. But it could be, I'm going to go downstairs and make myself a cup of tea, or I'm going to make myself some breakfast, or I'm going to do the washing up, or I'm going to clean the car is maybe a bad idea, but I'm going to go and stand outside my front door. That might be, whatever the baby step is, that's your one thing that you're going to do tomorrow that's going to make you feel like you achieved something the next day. I've had people, complaining that, there's nothing I do. It's like, well, you can find stuff. Drink a glass of water. Drink a pint of water. Okay, that's your task for tomorrow. Drink 2 pints of water is the following day. That kind of thing. You can build up these types of things. Exercise. You could do a little bit of exercise. You could start doing some, sitting down and standing up exercises. You could do some sit-ups, that kind of stuff. So you can walk up and down the stairs, or walk to the kitchen and back 10 times. That would be your exercise for the day. And then you can say, well, okay, the next day I'm going to do 11, then I'm going to do 12 times. That kind of stuff. You could build up these little habits, wherever the habits are, habits here. You can build up these little habits and create yourself a good routine that makes sense. You can give yourself some good food down here. You can start making some money online if you want to. These are all things that can be possible to do. Anyway, but you've got to do the work. You've got to learn the techniques. You've got to learn the rules. And now, what I was saying before about the doctor would allow you to come off the antidepressants. Well, once you've learned these techniques and these techniques, and I was going to say tricks. I'm trying to avoid saying tricks. These habits, these daily things, then you can go back to your doctor and say, I'm not sure I need the antidepressants anymore. What do you feel? What do you think, Mr. Doctor? And he might say, well, let's wean you off them. Let's slowly come off them, and let's see if you still cope okay. And be careful about this whole thing. If you're on them already. But if you're already off them and you want to maintain that and you don't want to slip back, great. That's what I'm here for. That's my line at the moment, which is I help people stay off antidepressants. That's my kind of official line that I can get away with saying from a medical perspective, because you're not on them at the moment. And you don't want to go on them, right? And so I can help you do that, because I'm going to teach you the 15 pillars of happiness and just incorporate those into your normal everyday lives. But you have to do the work. You actually have to write in the journal. You have to do the exercise. You have to eat the good food. You have to go outside. You have to appreciate nature. You have to, listen to good music. You have to make sure you audit your friends. So that you have to stop watching rubbish on TV and the news that's going to drag you down, all that kind of stuff. You have to do the breathing techniques on a regular basis. These are all things that are part of the 15 pillars that you can do that can help you raise your average level of happiness, help you learn how to ski uphill on slopes and so forth and all that kind of stuff. And all of these things will help you to recover from depression. Right. So that's the sort of baseline out now. So how fast can you recover? It depends on all those things. What are you doing those things? Are you making the effort? Are you making the effort? Are you, where are you in your journey and so forth? However, having said all of that, the hardest part about recovery from depression is choosing not to be depressed anymore. Which sounds ridiculous, because you're not really doing it. You're just choosing. You're saying, I don't want to be depressed anymore. And that is the key. That's the turning point. That I don't want to be depressed anymore. If you can say, I don't want to be depressed anymore, I'm going to do the work to stop myself from being depressed anymore. I'm going to recognize that if I do this work, I'm no longer going to be depressed or anxious, because it's basically the same process, because whatever it is, although anxious, because quite often you can be anxious about specific things. And if you're struggling with that, let me know. Drop me a message. I can help you with overcoming anxiety about driving, flying, birds, whatever. I'm just watching one of the episodes of the Fear Clinic, which is a place in Holland where you can go to overcome your fears. It's so simple. It's ridiculous. People are struggling with these things for years. They're terrified of these things. And you can literally overcome them in a couple of days. It's ridiculous. And I can probably do it. I would say I can even do it in about an hour or thereabouts, whatever your fear is. If you do the work, again, if you've got to do the effort. So anyway, so once you decide that you're no longer going to be depressed, you almost wake up the next morning. You could almost wake up the next morning no longer feeling depressed, because you're taking action to overcome the situation. And also, the other thing that's really important is to stop telling the story, I'm depressed. Oh, I can't do that because I'm depressed. Or I'm struggling with this because I'm depressed. And that excuse, that storytelling that you keep telling the same story over and over again, that is your inner voice. You're training your inner voice. Remember Inside Out 1 and 2? That voice inside your head that's constantly telling the story. If you keep telling yourself, we've talked about this many times in the past, the neurons inside your brain. I was talking to a psychiatrist the other day, and I was talking about neurons, and it was beautiful because, having seen somebody have this conversation, talking to somebody about Alzheimer's essentially, and how your brain is affected by Alzheimer's. And we were talking about how if you do lots of things during your life, you create lots and lots of links within your head and your neurons inside your brain, so that when Alzheimer's hits you and it starts blocking your neural pathways, you've got lots of other paths you can go around to get to the destination you're trying to get to. But if you've been doing the same thing every single day for your whole life, it's like you're being on a motorway and there's a traffic jam and you can't get off the motorway. You're just stuck. You can't do anything. You sit there and you're completely unable to achieve anything. Whereas if you're driving through town, or you've got lots and lots of side roads and stuff, and you hit a traffic jam, you can just find a different route around. That's what you can do. If you've done all these things in your life and you've got all these different experiences and new experiences, you can find your way around the Alzheimer's limitations later in life. Which is why people say, learn a different language, do the Sudoku every day, all that kind of stuff. These habits that you do every day, these habits that you do every single day, help you to build up your brain and your brain muscle, and your mental health fitness. So I talk about mental health fitness. That's what I do. So anyway, you have to do the work. And once you've decided that you're going to make the changes and you start making the changes, it can be almost instant. Now, it's not going to actually be instant, because you've spent years and years and years and years falling down this slope, sliding down this spiral, this negative spiral into depression. And it's quite difficult to climb back out again. Like I was saying with the ski slope earlier on, you're trying to walk up a slippery slope and you keep sliding back down. It's hard work. It's effort. It takes effort. It takes continuous effort, which is why the 3-month journal, Create Happy Thoughts, it's 4 words a day, every day for 3 months, and you will retrain your brain to create happy thoughts every single day. You will focus on the good stuff that's happening in your life, and you can go back through and you can look back at the old stuff that you've written in here, and see what made you smile 2 months ago, and see what you achieved 2 months ago. You can compare it with what you're doing now as well. So if you're achieving big things now, or finding little tiny things that make you smile now, and there was a big thing that made you smile in the past, like I just watched Taskmaster, it always makes me smile. I was actually in fits of giggles earlier on, and it's great. Anyway, so it can be instantaneous, the decision, but then the process takes time. And I would say it takes 90 days. I mean, we talk about habits and forming habits and so forth, and people say it's 21 days to form a habit. It's not really true. It depends on what habit it is, depends how often you do the habit and all this kind of stuff. But 60 days, they reckon, is about the average for changing a habit, which is why this book is designed to be 90 days. So it's 3 months, 90 days, 12 weeks, whatever you want to do. It's basically all the same thing. Yes, because the habits in the back is 3 months. There's 12 weeks worth of this. I'm not sure about the days exactly, but 90 days. Anyway, it's basically 3 months, because every month is about 30 to 31 days or thereabouts. So it's close enough. To change your mindset, to retrain your brain. So 90 days, 3 months. Where are we now? We're in beginning of May now. May, June, July, August. There you go. By my birthday in September. Good Lord, my birthday is only 3 months away. June, July, August. Oh no, it's 4 months till my birthday. 3rd of September, in case anybody's interested. You can change your life in 3 months. Absolutely, totally, no question about it whatsoever. Now, my story, which I was going to tell you about, and I've been rambling on for a little bit too long now. How long have I been talking for? No idea. Can't tell. I was checking to see if I can tell from my Facebook Live feed. I can't see. On here? Does it say on here? No. Okay. Don't know. Roughly 12 o'clock. There's about half an hour I've been talking for so far. My story. So I didn't know I was getting depressed, obviously, because I didn't know about depression, didn't know how it works and all that kind of stuff. I actually started off with anxiety. I didn't even know I was struggling with anxiety. So I was trying to find myself a girlfriend. I don't like being single. I hate being single. I've been single for 18 years now. Or not 17 years. I don't know, anyway, something like that. Depending on what you count and all that kind of stuff. And depending on whether or not you count my last girlfriend as a proper girlfriend as well. Because she treated me very badly. But that's a whole different story. And by the way, if you're watching this, you probably know who you are. And if you think that doesn't sound like you, it's almost certainly not you. So don't worry about it. Especially Roz, by the way, if you think it's you. It's definitely not you, Roz. You did not treat me badly at all. And Chance, obviously, Chance was an amazing thing, but don't think I can really class Chance and Roz or Roz as actual girlfriends. Not sure. Anyway, Chance met on Camino. We spent like 3 weeks together. And Roz, about 4 or 5 weeks. I house sat for her and stuff. So, and then we kind of started a little something, and it didn't quite go anywhere. But anyway. So in my early days, I was trying to find myself a girlfriend, trying to find a date, and I was asking out lots of girls, and I didn't know how to do it, and I was terrible at it, and I was not very good in social situations, didn't really have any friends, and it was really it was a real struggle. I just slowly got more and more anxious about asking girls out, because I was just getting rejected, like constantly, over and over and over rejections. Every time I tried, I'd build up my strength and have another go, and I get rejected again, and it was just horrible. The whole thing was just horrible, and I kind of just gave up in the end. There's a longer story to this, but essentially that's what happened. And that's when the depression kicked in. So I started like wandering around, meandering around, sort of aimlessly, just going, what the hell is the point of my life? If I can't find myself, because all I've ever wanted, when people say, what did you want to be when you grew up? My answer is always a loving husband and loving husband and father. That's all I've ever wanted in my life, really. I'm not interested in career stuff. I just want to have a family. I want to love them. I do want to travel. I didn't know I wanted to travel until I stopped traveling for work. But when I stopped traveling for work, I thought, I really enjoyed traveling. I'd like to do more of that with my wife and with my children. I'd like to go and visit and explore wild and weird places with my children and educate them and take them on experiences and excitements that I didn't really have enough of. My dad was in the army. We moved around a lot, but it was always not really holidays. It wasn't really exciting places. It was, our British Army bases in Germany and Canada was kind of exciting. But anyway, when people ask me, what do you want to be when you grew up? It was loving father and husband. And so that's all I was ever really looking for, is like, I just wanted a girlfriend who I could see myself growing old with and having a family with. And I just couldn't get anybody interested in me. It was just driving me insane. And it wasn't until I was 40 when one of my ex-girlfriends, Karen, God bless her, and she was Karen's mum actually that picked up on it. Karen's mum said to Karen, well, of course John is autistic, isn't he? And Karen said, oh, I don't think he is. And her mum said, oh, doesn't he know that he is? So then Karen came back to me and said, does John know hi John, how you doing? So, did you know you might be autistic? And I was like, funny you should say that, because somebody else said something similar to that. No, it wasn't. It was a Facebook like quiz thing that I came up on my feed, and it was literally the day or two beforehand. And I'd taken this quiz, and I came in borderline Asperger's on the quiz, and I was like, that's really interesting. So I started looking into it more. I looked like, what is the features of hello viewer, by the way, how you doing? Of autism. So what does autism mean? Because I had no idea. I'd never heard of it before. So I was like, what is this? And it turns out poor social skills, struggling with eye contact, saying inappropriate things. And I'd been caught on all of these things over my life while I've been trying to date people. And suddenly it all made sense. Distractions by noises and hypersensitivity and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is me. This is so me. And so I started doing something to change it. I started learning how to maintain eye contact and how to ignore noises and things in the background and stuff. So, because imagine if you're ever on a date with somebody and there's like stuff happening behind and there's noises off to the side. If you're sitting there having a conversation with somebody and you're constantly kind of looking around and paying attention to other conversations and stuff, it looks like you're not interested in the conversation. And so the other person would think that I wasn't interested in them, which is not true at all. Also, my brain is like on hyperwarp, so I'm constantly like looking for something to do. I get very bored very easily. And so in just a conversation, my brain would be saying, I want to do something else. And of course, what I didn't realize is that this came across badly to people who I was talking to and interacting with in a social environment. And so, that's why I just couldn't maintain those friends. I'm much better at that now. I can hold that in. I can ignore the noise and the sounds around me. I can ignore the desire to come and do something else while I'm talking to somebody. I can ignore the fact that I want to interrupt them to let them know that I already know what they're going to talk about before they finish talking about it. And it's like, I know this story. It's already, that kind of thing could be rude. I understand now about appropriateness in certain circumstances, and that certain conversations you need to hold back a little bit. And, I'm still not very good at it. I still struggle with it a little bit. I'm still far more forward and honest and open than I probably ought to be in a dating scenario, in a situation. Like if you're meeting somebody first time and you're telling them all your stories and all your histories, like I'm telling you right now, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And I can be, like some girls might call it love bombing. And because I know right away whether or not I'm going to like somebody or not. So I'm like, right, I'm all in. Let's go. My friend Cordelia always says, you wouldn't ask somebody to marry you on the first day. And I'm like, yeah, I would. Because I know straight away. Yeah, this is her. This is the one I want. I'm ready. Let's go. Equally, of course, I also know, nope, you're not right. Nope, you're not the one. It's not worth going on further. Let's not waste any more time. Let's just knock it on the head and move on. So that's also me as well, which is also not particularly good in a dating environment. But that I learned all that stuff. And I learned then to overcome that. I went on a training course in London to how to talk to women, how to present yourself better, how to read body language better, and all that sort of stuff. And I got much better at it. I was still not very good at getting the dates. I'm still not very good at getting a girlfriend. I'm still terrible at that whole situation. But I'm quite good now at maintaining friendships and social situations and having conversations with people. I'm pretty good at all that stuff now. And maintaining eye contact and basically not looking like I've got autism. So I can hide all that stuff now. Also a bit of ADHD in there, which is why I tend to want to fiddle around with cubes while I'm doing other things. So anyway, that's my story. So I struggled with that depression for ages. And then in 2012, the big moment, and I'd struggled with it before, and I'd been on antidepressants a couple of times before. I got banned from driving because I wasn't paying attention to the road, because I was distracted by my brain going, why can't I get a girlfriend, and all that kind of stuff. In 2012, I had a massive panic attack. I didn't know I was having a panic attack. I just felt like I was having a heart attack, actually. I couldn't breathe. I ended up curled up in a ball on the floor in my kitchen. Interestingly, now, looking back on it now, I was actually about to go on what I thought was going to be a date with a girl, but she probably didn't. But it was meeting a girl for coffee who I quite fancied. Let's just leave it at that for now. And I was thinking to myself, should I go early? So I'm definitely there. Should I do some work at home first? And I was like, no, I know I'm not very good at my timing, so maybe I should just go in first and take the work with me. Then I'm already there, so I don't do some work and get distracted in here and then forget the time and then turn up late. That would be terrible. And my whole brain was just going through this churn. And eventually my body just shut down. And I started crying. I fell onto the floor in a big heap. Couldn't breathe. Didn't know what the hell to do. Wasn't sure how to phone for an ambulance. I was on like the 3rd floor of a block of flats. So I was like, how do they even get to me? How do I tell them where I am? I can't breathe. How can I tell anybody what's going on? So I texted my friend Mark at the time and said, what I'm doing. He said, sounds like you might be having a heart attack. Try pretending like you're breathing into a paper bag. And so I did. So I pretended I had a paper bag and and of course I calmed down because I got my breath under control. I did the breathing exercises. I took my body, which was in panic mode, fight or flight, and I changed it into rest and recover mode. That's what you're doing, and moving your body from its I can't remember what the words are. I can't remember the words. But anyway, the fight or flight mode into the rest and recover mode. You can do that with breathing in just seconds, literally seconds. Just that deep breathing, take a deep breath, hold it for a second, and then breathe out like you're blowing up a paper bag, which is where I came up with the birthday breathing exercise. So you're blowing out candles. So that's why you go lungs in, hold it, and then blow out the candles on your cake. Happy birthday to you. Welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. It's your birthday today. Welcome to. You're also thinking positively about birthdays. Should be, at least anyway. Obviously, some of us had bad birthdays. These things happen. I had a birthday in September. Not a great time for a child to have a birthday because school's finished. You haven't started the next term yet. You haven't got your friends around me, especially somebody who's travelling a lot, whose parents have moved every 2 years. So you haven't got a group of friends at home either. So my birthday on September was always like, I'm on my own. There's nobody around. I can't have a party, all that kind of stuff. It was just like, ugh, which then adds to all of that depression and that negativity that you've got. No harm, no shame to anybody else. It just was what it was. And I wasn't very good at maintaining friendships and making friends and so forth. So it just added to that whole process. And it never got any better. Hello, Mark. I think that might be Mark watching us, actually, because he just liked the video. So that's cool. Anyway, so yes, that's what happened. So I had this big panic attack. Mark said breathing thing. I got in touch with my doctor. Got my doctor and said, oh, yeah, it sounds like you're just having a panic attack. Let's get you sorted out. So she helped me get onto benefits, because one of the reasons for the panic attack was that I'd run out of money and I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills at the end of the month. Plus I was going on this date with this girl. So those two things basically just, because it was like, I'm going to do the work to try and make the money, got to go on this date with the girl so I can get the girl. Both of those two things just basically spiraled out of control inside my own brain, and my body shut down and just went, oh, I don't want to do it itself. Yes, so my doctor said, put me on antidepressants, and so I went on antidepressants again. And I said, and I'm not sure if I said it at the time, or I might have said it when I went back for my follow-up appointment, but I may have said something like, I don't want to be on antidepressants anymore. How do I get off them? How do I stay off them? And he said, well, I don't really know, because this was 2012, so a little while ago now. But she did say, well, we've got mindfulness courses, we've got CBT courses, you can go on both of those. And I also found a guy local to me who taught meditation, which I think happened later. I'm not sure when that happened exactly, or how that fitted into everything, but that course on meditation was fantastic and really helped me understand breathing techniques and how to shut down the negative chatter inside my brain. We talked about that on previous talks, but essentially you just do some breathing exercises, and when you get those negative thoughts appearing in your head, you say, thank you very much indeed. I don't want to think about that right now. I'm going to let it go. And I've talked before about how it's like if you're waiting for a bus and you're waiting for the number 33 bus and the number 50 bus comes along, and you go, no, I don't want the number 50 bus. And then the number 75 bus comes along, and you say, no, I don't want the number 75 bus. So you're waiting for the 33 bus. And that's what's going on in your brain, except you're not actually waiting for a bus at all. You're just saying, what I'm waiting for is empty space in my brain. I'm waiting for no buses. That's what I'm waiting for. So yes, that's basically what you do. You just say, no, have a conversation inside your head. I am not going to pay attention to that thought at this stage. Not quite sure. I want to try and get this link on this. Oh, here we go. This book I wanted to try and get from earlier on. Yeah, so that's essentially what it was. So I went on the CBT courses, this mindfulness course, this meditation course, and I started putting together a picture, because obviously they mentioned some of the other things on here about habits, and obviously she put me on benefits to get me the money. So that was the money thing sorted out. Yeah, and I started reading books and watching YouTube videos on how to do mental health stuff. And one, of course, was the Tony Robbins book. One of the few books I looked at was here. This one here. Oh, this one here as well. So yeah, so Tony Robbins, Notes from a Friend, very good book. And Sam the Magic Genie, a little child's book on mental health and mindset and how that all works. So I recommend both those books. I will put those links in the description as well, if I can just get this thing to work. It feels like my browser has crashed or something. If I refresh it and see what happens. Anyway, that is now refreshed. Get link. Why is it not giving me a link? Very annoying. There we go. Copy that. Paste that. That is the Matt Haig book. Reasons to Stay Alive. And then we go, okay, so now we look for Sam Magic Genie. Anyways, here it is. Sam the Magic Genie. Yes, so that was my story. I don't want to be on antidepressants. I started reading all these books, started learning all this stuff, started putting together a picture of how to overcome mental health and mindset. And eventually went back to my doctor and said, I don't need to be on these antidepressants anymore. And she said, yep, that's fine. That's great. We can wean you off them. I think I came off them a bit faster than I really should have done. But essentially, that was the point. When I went to that doctor and she said, you're having a panic attack, we're going to put you on antidepressants and we're going to send you on a CBT and a mindfulness course. That was the point at which I said, I don't want to be depressed anymore. And essentially, I turned off my depression at that point. Now, it wasn't quite as straightforward as that. It's a little bit, again, I've kind of used this analogy in the past, is like when you break your leg and you put a plaster cast on it, you can walk straight away almost once it's set on that leg. And so you're kind of like, okay, I can carry on going. This is fine. You've kind of, your brain has gone over the fact that I'll never be able to walk again. Oh, I will be able to walk again. Okay, this is cool. Oh, I can walk again. Okay, this is kind of cool. So you've kind of made that straight away, but you can't run yet. And you've got this big clunky thing on your leg, so you can't bend your leg properly. So you've still got to go through all the physiotherapy and all the exercise. In fact, and probably a better analogy for this is when I dislocated my right knee and snapped my ACL. That was my first game back playing local league basketball. So I'd had a meniscus tear on my left knee a year and a half earlier during practice for a National League basketball game, when basically I was having young, like 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and I was 36 at the time, running circles around me on the court, and I was absolutely exhausted. And they kept on saying, no, you can keep going, John, you keep going, John. And I was like, no, I can't. I can't do it. I can't keep going. And I wanted to stop, and nobody would let me stop. And then I just got knocked from somebody. And of course, I didn't have any muscle power left at all to stay upright. And I just twisted my knee, and that was that, and tore my meniscus. And then I had to go for an operation to sort that out. And then I went through like a year's worth of rehab to get myself fully fit, back to playing basketball again. Then my first game back to basketball, my left knee was absolutely fine. And I just went out for a rebound, got my foot stuck on the wall, dislocated my right knee, snapped my ACL. And that was the end of that. And I had to go back into surgery again, have my reconstruction on my ACL, because the doctor said to me, you don't have to do it, but if you want to play basketball again, you want to reconstruct your ACL, so you've got the stability to be able to play basketball again. I was like, yeah, I want to get back to basketball again. Then about halfway through my recovery, I was just like, do you know what? I can't be bothered anymore. So it's a good example of, I went through and I did the work to get myself fully fit and back to basketball again the first time. But then the second time I was like, I just can't be bothered anymore. And so I kind of gave up the basketball at that point. I basically retired from playing basketball, age 38 or something, I think it was at the time. But I had my ACL reconstructed, so I've got the stability, and I'm kind of got my fitness back, and I could go back to playing basketball again. I mean, I was playing with people who were 60 odd at the time, so, and I'm 55 in September, so we all know how old I am. So I could go back to it if I wanted to, and I might do one day. And I've always thought if I went back to Cheltenham, I'd start playing again. And I probably enjoy that, to be fair. So I probably will go back to it again, but I'd have to do the fitness, and I have to get myself fully fit again to go back to it properly. Although I probably wouldn't go to National League, obviously. I'd go back to local league and just playing against, old fuddy-duddies like myself, just for a bit of fun. But yes, you have to do the work and maintain it. But essentially, when he said to me, do you want to play basketball again? We'll do the ACL reconstruction. That was the point. I said, yes, I'm going to play basketball again. So immediately I was on, yes, I'm going to play basketball again. That was the moment. But then I had to do the work. I had to do the work to get fit and get myself back to being able to play basketball at that sort of level again. And then about halfway through all that effort, that extra effort that I put in, I got bored and couldn't be bothered anymore and kind of gave up on the whole thing. So it's the same sort of thing with your depression. If you want to get out of depression, you can decide just like that, and you're basically no longer depressed because you've decided you're no longer going to be depressed. But you then got to do the work in to maintain it. You've got to keep that discipline up. You've got to keep that fitness up. Now, I kept a level of fitness because obviously I had to start with. I couldn't walk, and I could walk, but I couldn't walk well. I couldn't run, but eventually I could run again. And so I kept up. So I got to a base level. I got to a base level that I was happy with. Remember how I said you don't have to do all these things all the time. You can just get yourself to a base level that you're happy with. Same with the bath thing I talked about earlier. You can put the barriers up. You can learn how to turn the taps off, on and off. You can learn how to pull the plug in and out. And you can get yourself to a point where the bath temperature is the right temperature and it isn't overflowing. And you're fairly comfortable and you're fairly happy. But it might just not be like the peak that you're aiming for. It's not like the perfect life, the fantastic life that you're aiming for, like the playing basketball at National League level again. You might not get to that level, but you can get yourself to a good level that you're happy with and that's comfortable and makes you feel good, and isn't depression, basically, because that's where you want to get to. You want to get to that point where you're no longer depressed. So to answer the question of my good friend who asked me earlier, how long does it take you to come out of depression? It depends. Essentially, that decision is instant because you just decide you're not going to be depressed anymore. But then you've got to put the work in. Then you've got to fill in the Create Happy Thoughts diet journal. You've got to do this for 90 days. Keep it up. You've then got to start doing all the other things that are on here. Who are you hanging around with? What are you feeding your brain? Learning, food-wise. Are you getting fit? Are you going outside and doing the exercise? The physical stuff is also important. But you can use the journal to do that as well, because you can create the habits. You can start building up the habits. You can start adding in the number of things from the 15 pillars and put them into here, the habits that I'm going to do every single day. And I'm going to train myself over the course of that month, those 3 months, to implement those habits and build myself up. And eventually you will no longer feel depressed every single day. It will just not be there anymore. You'll wake up one morning and go, that depression has gone completely. It kind of still sits there in the back of your mind because you've been there once before, so you know what it feels like. But the great thing is, once you've got yourself to a certain level of mental health fitness, you can stop yourself falling back down. You can go, I recognize that I'm not, I'm getting a bit out of shape in my mind. I can just focus on doing some of the 15 pillars a bit more again. I can make sure I go out a bit more. I can mix with mingle with a few people. I can go out and do some fitness. I can eat some better food for a little while. I can get myself back up again. I can essentially, it's like physical fitness. I can go out and I can do a run a week, for example. Remember several weeks ago, I was going to do a Couch to 5K, and then I had flu for like 2 weeks. And so I completely ruined that plan. But I'm going to start again. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do that process again. So Couch to 5K again, basically start from zero again. Although again, because I did the 3 or 4 or 5 runs or whatever it was I did before, my fitness level is slightly higher than it was when I started the Couch to 5K previously. And so those little things that I did before have raised my bar slightly. And now I'm a little bit ahead of where I started last time, which is great. I'm also getting a little bit podgy, so I do need to do a bit more fitness very often, and I need to eat a little less food and get rid of a bit of that little extra weight that I could very easily get rid of Thank you very much indeed. Notes from a friend. Just remember, I haven't put the other book into the chat. Here you go, Tony Robbins, Notes from a Friend. So, and they're all basically, these are really, really tiny books. So if you're reading these, very easy to read. And don't forget also to read the beginning of my book as well, because there's a whole bunch of really good information about neuroscience at the front of this book as well. So go read that as well. That'd be great. Where is my get link? And that is all we're going to talk about today. There goes the third book going in there now. That is all we're going to talk about today. That was my journey out of depression. It took a while. I was depressed for 10, 15 years or so. I decided that I didn't want to be depressed anymore in 2012. I started putting the effort in, and I basically only got depressed, I think, 3 more times after that, and started feeling suicidal. Oh, by the way, I was suicidal prior to 2012, and even during 2012 a little bit. I remember the summer of 2012, I went to an event in Birmingham, and I was walking along a balcony with a big drop underneath. And I remember a moment when I thought to myself, gosh, all this pain would go away if I just managed to head first off this balcony. But then I was like, yeah, but what if it doesn't actually end my life? What happens if I end up just being a quadriplegic and I lose all sensations below my neck? What kind of a life am I going to live then? I'm going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I don't want that to happen. And also the pain that it's going to cause my family and my mum and dad and all that kind of stuff. If I did something like that, just don't be stupid, John. And that's always the thing that stopped me ultimately, is the pain that I would cause other people. Obviously for me, it's a short term. It's a very, very long term solution to a short term issue. You're only in pain short term. You've got some stress that's going on. Dislocated your knee, for example, snapped your ACL, but you can do the work. You can have it reconstructed. You can then do the physiotherapy. You can get yourself back on your feet and stuff. These are all things that can be fixed. But if you kill yourself, there's no way back from that. You're dead. You're gone. You can't recover from that. That's it. You're over. You're done. So your pain might stop, but it doesn't stop the pain that you're going to cause, the ripple effect you're going to cause on all the people around you. I still have friends. I have friends who have taken their own lives in the past, and I still think about them now. The pain of them no longer being here lives on inside me. Christian, yeah, at the very least. I can't remember the other two off the top of my head, but I can picture their faces. I can't remember their actual names, is what I mean. But yeah, and there was a boy at school who actually no, he didn't kill himself. He actually died. He was in a bike accident, actually, thinking about it. But there was a guy who tried to kill himself at school, and then there was another guy who did kill himself, an old school friend. So, again, and this is an example of those stories that you keep telling yourself. Keep telling yourself stories. You'll keep thinking about them all the time. So don't do that. But the point being is that those people are still in my psyche. The end of their lives has never stopped being a pain in my life, a hurtful part of my existence. So yeah, I wouldn't want to go through any of that stuff. And then in 2016, when I was walking the Camino, I had a moment when it happened then. And then in 2017, when the Neptune rum situation came to a head, I had a kind of mental breakdown. Didn't really feel suicidal, but the depression and the anxiety were off the charts that time. And that was the point at which I implemented the things that I've been talking about from the Cube, the 15 pillars, and I implemented them for myself. And within 24 hours, I was feeling better again. And then I had another crash the following day, and that was it. I said, right, this is never going to happen again. I'm going to make sure I protect myself against this kind of craziness for the rest of my life. And that's it. So 2017, never had that problem again. I've never allowed myself to slip down that slope and get depressed and fall into depression ever again. So where are we now? What's that? 8 years later? Haven't suffered from any kind of depression or anxiety since. Tiny bits of anxiety. Well, that's not true. You can feel yourself slipping a little bit, but then I always pull myself out of it. I always know where I'm going. I always know what to do as well. I went to Budapest a couple of months ago now, I think, actually, and I got a little bit depressed because of the situation that happened over there. But I just recognised that all I needed to do was take a moment for myself, focus on me, focus on my recovery, focus on feeling better, and then I'd feel better. And so that's what I did. I watched a bit of telly, watched some pointless movies that just took my mind off things. I went out for a walk, got myself a nice coffee, made myself a nice meal, and I started feeling better again. I started going, right, okay, time to pull yourself together. You've had a little bit of a wallow. You've had a little bit of a moment of, why does this keep happening to me? Why is my life not going the way I keep planning it to? And I was like, right, time to get back up on my feet again and start going again. So I gave myself that little bit of space to feel, to recover. I guess that in hospital, when you've had your ACL reconstructed, you've still got to do that little bit of recovery time. But then I got back on the horse. Then I started doing the walking. I started doing the physiotherapy. I started doing the extra work. I started paying attention to these things. I started writing in my journal a bit more often, and all that kind of stuff. And then I got myself back on my feet, and that was fine. So I wouldn't say that was a depression or an anxiety moment. That was in fact, if anything, that was a really good example of how I recover from these things and get myself back on my feet. Now that I've got all the tools and I have got the fitness, the mental health fitness to be able to deal with these things. So there's my answer to your question. It's kind of instant once you decide, but then you've got to put the work in to keep yourself, to do the exercise, to do the fitness, to do the physiotherapy, to be able to then never struggle again in the future. You've got to put the work in. You've got to take the steps. You've got to do the effort. You've got to do the work. You've got to do the work. There's a book back there called Do the Work. By a guy called Pressfield. Is it Do the Work? Let's do the work. Let me check, and I'll put that chat in there as well. Do the Work. Stephen Pressfield. Here we go. Oh, there's a book called How to Do the Inner Work. Yeah, similar sort of thing. I'm not sure about this. Do the work. Could you be getting in your way of producing great work? If you started a project and never finished? Yeah, so here you go. So, not quite the same thing, but the title was relevant to the conversation we were just having. There is an enemy, an intelligent, active, malign force working against us. Step one is to recognize it. Well, here you go. Actually, that's exactly what I'm saying. You've got this negative depression inside you. Step one is to recognize that it's there. Recognize your inner voice. This is on here. This recognition is enormously powerful. This is the I don't want to be depressed moment. That's exactly what it's talking about. It saved my life. It will save yours. That's exactly it. It saved my life. It saved yours. Deciding that you don't want to be depressed anymore, then do the work. It's as simple as that, really. Okay, that's all from me. Sending you all the love. Mwah. Take care of yourselves. Have a lovely day. Happy birthday to you, remember? Remember, it's your birthday. Remember to do your breathing exercises. Hold it. Light candles on your left hand while you're holding the breath, and then blow the candles out. Think about something that's made you smile, something that you've achieved, something that you're grateful for, something you're going to achieve, and then send some love to somebody in your life that you love, that you want to send the love to. Mwah. Take care. I'm sending it to you. Dear viewer, thank you for watching. Love you. Great. Bye.